Welcome to DonorConnect. I'm Sarah Ramsey, Senior Director of Donor Engagement here at the Community Foundation of Greater Des Moines. DonorConnect is a conversation series designed to bring our community together to learn about and discuss our region's most pressing issues and promising opportunities. And we host these events throughout the year. This is our first DonorConnect of 2026. So this DonorConnect will focus on 2025 grant recipients from the Community Foundation's Better Together Fund. And we are very glad that you are part of this discussion today. If there's something that you're curious about or interested about, please elevate it using the chat feature below. And now I'd like to kick it off and introduce Angie Detlefs-Tretton, our Chief Community Impact Officer, who leads this work and will lead our discussion today. Angie, take it away.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Sarah, and good afternoon, everyone, on a chilly Friday afternoon. I'm excited to spend some time with you today, highlighting the work of the Better Together Fund. But before we begin talking to some amazing community leaders, I wanted to just give you a bit of context as to what the Better Together Fund is all about. So the Better Together Fund held at the Community Foundation really provides an opportunity for everyone who loves Greater Des Moines to invest in our community's most important issues, initiatives, and needs, not just today, but for tomorrow as well. Simply put, the Better Together Fund is like the community's savings account for our future. And on behalf of the grant recipients that you'll hear from today and the many that we've impacted over the years, as well as the entire community, I just want to say thank you to those individuals and the families and the businesses and others who've contributed to the Better Together Fund, and also to those who have made plain gifts to support the fund as well. The Better Together Fund in action fuels 3 competitive nonprofit grant programs that we have here, one of which is the Leadership Grant Program. Investments from this grant program are aligned to community priorities and plans. They're really focused on opportunities to foster and prioritize inclusive engagement. And there's also the overarching goal of improving the quality of life for all in our community. In 2025, we had 4 overarching priorities that guided this work. And you'll see on the screen here, those 4 grant-making priorities. They included expanding access to housing and transportation, advancing community health and resilience, fostering an inclusive economic and workforce development, and also cultivating a thriving and inclusive region. Each of our award recipients that you're going to hear from today has a direct connection to at least one of these grant-making priorities, but I think you'll quickly figure out that addressing systemic challenges requires work across all of these areas to some degree. So today, during our very short 45 minutes, we're going to hear more about how 4 leadership grant awards are driving change and challenging existing systems to really address these root causes of challenges in our community. Leadership grants look to invest in community solutions, not solely projects, and I'm very excited for this conversation and for you to learn more. So I'm going to now turn to discussing these exciting projects, and I want to start with a conversation on the Central Iowa Emergency Rental Assistance Study. I'm going to reference this as study, which is being stewarded in our community by the Mid-Iowa Health Foundation and Dr. Nalo Johnson, the president and CEO of the Mid-Iowa Health Foundation. Thank you so much, Nalo, for being here today and for joining us. And it's so good to see you today.
Well, thanks for having us. We're excited to be able to share about the project.
Well, and as I was saying before, too, we're excited to be a part of this work. One of the things that you and I have talked about is how this study is closely tied to addressing a strategy in the blueprint to address homelessness. And for those who are joining us, this is a new regional approach to addressing homelessness that was launched in 2025. The plan specifically calls for a homeless prevention program that includes emergency rental assistance for rent, utilities, and things like that. So, help those who have joined us today learn a little bit more about the study and how it's going to fit into that strategy for our community, Dr. Johnson.
Yeah, absolutely. So the key question that the study is examining is what is the most effective length of time to provide emergency rental assistance to a family that's experiencing a crisis so that they can be back in an economically stable situation. And we see this as really supporting that effort in strategy 1.A and examining homeless prevention assistance solutions as a part of that blueprint to address homelessness. Just to give you a sense of the study design, there'll be a total of 672 participants as a part of this study. When someone is seeking this assistance, they'll present themselves to a participating nonprofit partner and be randomly assigned to either receive 1 month, 3 month, or 6 months of assistance, or be assigned to the control group. The control group can still access all the resources at that agency, but won't receive assistance directly from the study itself. So participants will be surveyed 3 times over this study period. A smaller cohort will participate in long-form interviews to provide additional context. We'll also be interviewing landlords. We think that's really important so that we have an understanding of what are the impacts on businesses when you have tenants who are experiencing crisis, have access to a tool like emergency rental assistance. And this will be a 2-year project period. So we'll kick off in July and we'll be able to share the findings with the community in the third quarter of 2028. I'd also just like to acknowledge that in addition to the study itself, we'll also be supporting a community conversation series. And so that allows us to bring forward education and awareness around these housing and homelessness prevention related topics. Everything from bringing in local and national research to expert panels to highlighting publications and whatnot related to the efforts. So we're excited to be able to bring this kind of scientifically valid research data to then inform the solutions that are being called for as a part of the blueprint.
Well, and you talked about the study itself is a 2-year time frame, and you mentioned several partners, Dr. Johnson, that are involved. And I love the elevation too of the recognition of the landlord, in addition to the nonprofit organizations that are supporting clients, those who are needing assistance. So there are tons of partners, and that's
Yeah.
exciting. So though out of those partners, like what do you believe they will be able to glean from this participation in this study, and what might we anticipate? I don't want to tell you to tell us what the outcomes will be, but
Which we
what
can't.
I know what you can. But what might we be able to glean in terms of like systems change from something like
Yeah.
this for Central Iowa?
I mean, the ultimate goal of this is to be able to have scientific valid research recommendations, to be able to either design, refine, or augment emergency rental assistance programs in our community. And I think that's why this is something that seems very easy for our local government and our nonprofit partners to want to participate in because they're already invested in these type of programs. However, their programs aren't really tested in terms of their efficacy. So to be able to bring forward this data so that they can either implement or refine their current programming is truly a gift to the community to know that their programs will operate in the most optimal way to achieve that goal of keeping families housed.
Well, and the way that the study was set up, for those who are really interested, as you can tell, there's lots more to all these topics. But the way that the study was set up, adds dollars to community while maintaining those rental assistance programs that are in place. And so I think that's also a really powerful lens that this study will bring. We're going to be able to look at what's happening, and we're going to be able to infuse some additional emergency rental assistance support right now in the community as well. So. Really appreciate your leadership around this and helping us sort of think maybe differently, bigger in an innovative way. And the connection back to systems change potential is, I think, exciting for all of us, including all those partners that you referenced. So thank you so much for that. And we'll hear from you here more in a little bit. So as you heard a little bit about that study, the Central Iowa Emergency Rental Assistance Study, It's really focused on understanding and expanding our understanding, rather, about how we can best support those at risk of experiencing homelessness. And there are other partners like the Polk County Housing Trust Fund that's also focused on expanding and preserving affordable housing options. We talk about it all the time as the continuum. So, the Polk County Housing Trust Fund is working on new and creative solutions and recently launched something called the Housing Opportunities for Preservation and Expansion Initiative. One of the key programs where the Community Foundation is excited to be involved is called the Work That Impacts Housing Coalition. This is really focused on supporting under-resourced Central Iowans enter the building trades workforce. And the Community Foundation is excited about this because it emphasizes this connection between housing and workforce by really connecting program participants, to construction partners and existing homeowners who have properties that might need repair or may be vulnerable to code violations. And when there's a code violation, there's the potential of a fine, and fines definitely have an impact on financial situations. So I would like to invite Julian Neely, who is the Director of Advancement and Community Investment at the Polk County Housing Trust Fund, to tell you more about this leadership grant last year. Julian, it's so great to see you. I always love to hear about the innovation that you've been up to with your organization. And thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Well, and we're glad to have an opportunity to learn just a little bit more about another complex idea with the Work That Impacts Housing Coalition. Can you talk about more about sort of the initiative and how you and those who dreamed it see it impacting systems change in our community? I know it talks about addressing inequities, but tell us from your vantage point, what do we see in terms of hope for systems change impact?
Absolutely. This program is very unique in the sense that it meshes two components, as you mentioned, Angie. It capitalizes on economic and workforce development, but also sustaining the health of a community or helping advance the health of a community, and meshing those two things together and solving it under a specific program. And so this was actually fostered out of all the reports that were coming out about our community, from the Capital Crossroads reports to our own initiative, Here We Grow, and then even the one economy report that the Directors Council produced, and then even Central Iowa Credit Union Foundation's report just around the status of health here in our community. And so when I was looking and reviewing a lot of this content and data, I would recognize it's like, okay, aren't we able to mesh these things together a bit and solve it under one roof? Or at least contribute to the solution to under one roof. And so we have a need in getting individuals into the trades. Trades have a need because they have a high rate of folks that are retiring. And so there's a gap there. And then at the same time, we have individuals that are either low income, cost burden in our community, that are in dead-end jobs that are just not increasing their income at the same rate that inflation is occurring. And also, their bills are increasing. They have childcare expenses. They have rent due. They have mortgages, they have car payments, just to be able to sustain life. And so how do we position them into a livable career, or a career that provides a livable wage? And then at the third point, we have, in the city of Des Moines, we have homes on average at the average age of like 1957. And so that includes, or is in the range of, homes still having asbestos, lead, potentially outdated pipes and plumbing, electrical wiring in their homes, or just need carpentry repairs that make the home safer for somebody to navigate, and just be more accessible for them to navigate their home. So when I brought those three things together, I was like, let me speak with some folks that are experts in the trades and see if this idea can come about. So we offer a 4-month pre-apprenticeship program for adults, individuals 18 and older, many that might have children, many of them that might have partners, their own rent, and like I said, other bills that they're paying, but are in dead-end jobs, have the opportunity to be fully paid through this 4-month pre-apprenticeship program. It's broken out into 2 different phases. Phase 1 is residential. They go through the multi-craft core curriculum. And
That's a mouthful.
yes. And
That is
so
a
we
mouthful.
usually use MC3, but I wanted to make sure everyone knew what that
Yeah.
curriculum was. And then we also provide the International Code Council for building inspection. So working with past Assistant City Manager Malcolm Hankins, he had informed us that the cities and other cities surrounding Des Moines are in need of more building inspectors. And so, how can we embed that into our program? And so, the first phase will also be provided all the study materials, and we'll cover their exam to be able to get that certification. And then phase two, they are transitioned into one of the tracks that they've selected, either electrician track or the carpentry track. And we are working with IBEW in the Des Moines Electrical Apprenticeship Center, as well as Local 106, which is the carpentry union, to be able to offer them that commercial experience. And so they will not only get like technical classroom experience, but they'll also get on-site training working with one of their union contractors. And so on board right now, we have Tri-City Electric, we have Baker Electric, and many others that are very interested in offering this opportunity because now it directly streamlines them into a full apprenticeship program. We have folks that are part of our coalition that will help our pre-apprentices guide through that application process and everything that's necessary for them to be considered, strongly considered to be for a full apprenticeship program, which they have a grid that shows the different levels of income after the hours that they have accumulate from that apprenticeship program.
So the idea of the pre-apprenticeship and the all of the entities and the institutions and the approaches and the trades and the skills kind of all came together to support an individual in getting into that career pathway, so to speak. And then also the interesting thing to this particular initiative, Julian, is the connection to the needs that our local municipalities have identified with the code inspectors. I'm sorry, the words are escaping my
No, you're
mouth right
fine.
now. But the other thing, just real quick before we transition to the next one, is that yes, that's all about the individual, which is a really exciting piece, and working on them building financial stability through workforce. But they're also helping to work on those homes that you described that have
Yes.
some of those challenges. And that also is helping those homeowners build equity. So just can you talk a little bit about why that part is also an equally exciting component?
Absolutely. So we have the honor of working with improving our neighborhoods with the city of Des Moines. And that phase one that I had spoke about, our pre-apprentices will have the opportunity to go into five specific neighborhoods and support low to moderate income homeowners in those areas that may not have the disposable income to be able to do the necessary deferred maintenance or repairs in their home. Many of these neighborhoods have been either underinvested historically and just need more investment pouring in. But also, we found a gap in regards to some of our owner-occupied repair programs where many of them focus or prioritize exterior repairs. They don't do interior. And so that's where we're coming and supporting a lot of existing programs and being intentional that we're not mission creeping, but being able to supplement what is already doing and filling a void. And so our program, we're going in, providing these services. Our pre-apprentices get to shadow and possibly participate with some of those repairs with local contractors that are licensed with the city, while also building those relationships. And then they are also building relationships on the commercial side. And so they're, as our pre-apprentices graduate, they're going to have relationships all across the board and help them navigate the industry however their career like fits. And then we're helping a number of households who may not been able to stay in their home because of updates to the code or increased code inspections and enforcement where they, like you said, they might get a notice about, hey, you have to repair this.
Right.
They don't have that at disposable income. Now we're coming in a way of being able to fill that void. And we have many seniors that are possibly living in these homes that just need that additional access to capital to make their home safer and healthy for them to live that gives them the position to possibly even pass that home down generations to generations. And so when we talk about like generational wealth, these are some of the components that could possibly alleviate some of those barriers for low to moderate households that may not be able to do that because their home's not safe right now, but we are helping them make it safe so that they can be able to have the opportunity to capitalize on that generational pass down.
Well, and I appreciate, thank you so much for the leadership and the innovation in this. You know, at the core, I keep thinking about this project as neighbors, helping neighbors, helping
Mhm.
neighbors, helping neighborhoods.
Which
And I,
fosters more
yeah,
belonging and just
that's
appreciation
right.
and pride in their community.
I love that. And you know, and you spoke about this idea of mission creep. And for those who aren't maybe as familiar, I think the Polk County Housing Trust Fund, knowing what they exist to do in community, and really part of that is bringing folks together and around the table to help identify what's needed in order to advance it forward, and that it is still very core to your purpose as a nonprofit organization. It's not something way outside the scope, but it's really helping advance leadership in this space. So Julian, thank you so much for being part of the conversation. We'll see you again in just a moment.
Thank
And I do really love that idea of this project helping to change an individual's trajectory through education on the job, so to speak. Um, the power of education on the job is critically important, and it is critically important through the K through 12 phase of life, which is what our next leadership grant recipient knows a lot about through the By Degrees Foundation. By Degrees Foundation is a nonprofit that's really focused on the long-term success of the students. And they do that by pairing educational programming with tangible financial investments that are really focusing on closing an opportunity gap and promoting generational wealth building, I'm sorry, and supporting all of that work for K through 12 by supporting them and their families. So I know that there's a lot more to share about the work of the By Degrees Foundation and the innovation that you are looking at. So I'm happy to welcome Emily Westergaard, who's the CEO of the By Degrees Foundation. And Emily, I'm excited for you to share more about how you are scaling your work across the entire K through 12 north side of the Des Moines community. So thank you so much for being here. It's so good to see you again.
Indeed.
So tell us about, for those who don't fully understand the idea of the By Degrees Foundation, help people understand why investing in a student when they're in a school, why that is an impact on systems change and
Mhm.
why that's so critically important for you and critically important for our community.
Yes, absolutely. So investing in students is systems change because it reshapes how opportunity is created and sustained, not just for those individual students, but for their families and communities even more broadly. First, it broadens that opportunity, access to opportunity. We say something around here a lot that talent is distributed evenly, opportunity is not. And that is why
Say
By
that one more
Degrees
time.
works.
Say that one more time. Say that one more
Yeah,
time.
talent is distributed evenly, opportunity is not. And that is why we work in underserved neighborhoods to ensure that every student, regardless of their zip code, has access to opportunities that inspire them, that propel them, and that prepare them to be successful after high school. Secondly, it raises the expectations in a meaningful way for the entire community within that school and then into that neighborhood as well. And thirdly, it expands potential by aligning the systems around the students. At By Degrees Foundation, we connect students and families and volunteers and employers and post-secondary partners so that students aren't navigating these disconnected systems on their own. When we can align all of those systems and do the coordination, which is always what gets left off or unfunded in a lot of this work, if we can align those resources, coordinate that response, that then changes how the system works.
Well, and that's so interesting you're talking about that coordination because there's a lot that you are coordinating. And, you know, the work that is done by Degrees Foundation in particular, when we think about the systems work, you're
Mm-hmm.
connected to many of the grant making priorities and many of the plans that, you know, whether it's the one that Dr. Johnson was referencing or the one that Julian was referencing. You know, when we think about what you're doing, you're advancing issues around inclusive economic and workforce development in terms of preparing students and their families for long-term success. You're
Mm-hmm.
talking about advancing community health and resilience
Mm-hmm.
with helping stabilize families, support in the classroom and outside of the classroom. So,
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit more, though, about that unique paired partnership that By
Mhm,
Degrees is
mhm,
really expanding, exploding related to that financial tool, that
mhm,
529?
mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's so important to think first of all about how By Degrees is handling all those things that have nothing to do with education that have everything to do with education. We take on all of this other work to help the students come to school ready so that
Yeah.
then the teachers in the schools can do what they do best. And that's really where By Degrees has found its lane. In addition to that, or because of that, we have developed one of the most unique and really impactful financial capacity building programs in the country.
Mhm.
So, we created this program based off of research showing that, particularly for students from low income families, having $500 in a 529 savings account makes students 4 times more likely to graduate from some sort of education after high school. 500 bucks.
Yeah.
That we all know $500 does not pay for a lot. The
Right.
value of these accounts and the impact of these accounts is that we have been helping students identify as college going, whatever that means. And college really does take on a lot of work in that sentence. It's Drake, it's DMAC, it's registered apprenticeships. We just got back from a meeting with workforce development on the non-credentialed or the non uh, credit credentialing within the community college sector.
Okay.
So these accounts are impactful in their own right because they help students we incentivize what we know will help them be successful. So for example,
Right.
to give you the donors here some context, in elementary school, students can earn $50 every year when they improve their reading scores or when their grown-ups come to conferences, we put $50 into that account. In middle school, when they are involved in student leadership or volunteerism, we put money into that account. In high school, when they complete an internship or a resume building workshop, we put money into that account. So we're incentivizing what we know will help them be successful, and we're
Mhm.
celebrating it with real assets. And because of that, it also gives us access to have conversations with the students and families about the broader piece of financial capacity building, understanding where our families are starting at and realizing that that's a spectrum. We have some
Yeah.
families that don't know the difference between a checking and a savings account, and some families that would really like some help preparing for retirement. And so, how do we use these 529 accounts to begin conversations with all of our students and families about how they can prepare for whatever that next step is, whether it's post-secondary education or going right into the workforce for our students, or helping the family count become more self-sustainable, which then obviously benefits the student as well.
Well, I love when you said, really has nothing to do with education and everything to do with education.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the idea of really supporting this massive expansion on the north side
Mm-hmm.
to all K through 12 students and the systems change that could come related to generational wealth building and the tools necessary for um, K through 12 education and beyond, I think is really
Yeah.
exciting. So it's not too hard
Yeah.
to be inspired for the future when you hear about young people and their families being excited for theirs. So
Yeah.
really appreciate all that you do, Emily. Thanks for sharing. And we'll
Thank
see you
you.
back here in a minute.
Yeah.
So, at the heart of all these different conversations, I keep thinking about systemic change starts with acknowledging and respect for the person, right? Like understanding the human side of things and what we can do to help advance and make progress collectively in those systems. And a lot of that based out of respect and dignity for every single individual. And boy, I tell you, the Urbandale Food Pantry is a great example of an organization who also embodies that belief. The final grant recipient that I want to bring on today is Patty Snedden-Kisting, who is the CEO of the Urbandale Food Pantry. So, hi, Patty. Thanks for being here today. You've sure been busy these last few months, that's for sure. So, we're grateful for the time. So, what we want to talk about today is in 2025, the Urbandale Food Pantry opened that new facility that expands your pantry's capacity, enhances services, and really has created a community hub for additional resources. So, Patty, tell us about how the Urbandale Food Pantry is imagining a pantry that's not just about storing and distributing food. Help us understand where you're headed and how you're really changing the systems in terms of collaborative partners.
Thank you. Absolutely. So, at the heart of the Urbandale Food Pantry and the new facility project was really the opportunity to kind of reimagine what food support looks like. We were serving more families. The demand was real. We needed more food. We had no place to put it. And, so we took that opportunity. Food insecurity is just one small piece of that larger poverty problem. And hunger is, to me, rarely about food and just more about impossible decisions that families have to make. And
Mhm.
so, and food shouldn't be an impossible choice. And so, with that in mind, came the goals of a welcoming and dignified experience and increasing our capacity, but also being able to enhance our services through a true community hub model. And the new facility, and we took tactics and goals from the food security plan, from the City of Urbandale's Health and Human Service Plan, from the Mid Iowa Health Foundation's In Good Health Plan, that all really focuses on this resource navigation and additional wraparound support. And so, how can we create something? We're already serving over 2,200 families a month. How can we bring more services to where families are already going and decrease the hurdles or the barriers that so many of our families and community members have to jump through to receive a service? So the new facility really did increase our capacity, right, in so many tangible ways with the right infrastructure, dry storage, frozen storage, cold, just all of that. Our ability to accept larger donations, have dedicated space for our anytime room and shopping center. And then also, we watched that played out with this new facility with bringing on new programs like the HKI program, the Healthy Kids Iowa program, and then navigating a government shutdown and a delay of benefits. We had the right infrastructure in place to meet that need. And so then we also talk about how, food insecurity rarely exists by itself, right? It's
Right.
always connected to health, housing, education, kids in school, so many different things. And so we intentionally designed this space to say, hey, we do food and we do food really well. Please, community partners, come and do what you do really well in our space. And so today we have a handful of partners that are on site with WIC, who provides services right now to families. Project Iowa's here a couple days a week. We have a collaboration with Meals on Wheels that's starting, and then commodities, and really taking the opportunity this year in 2026 to be intentional on how do we welcome on some additional partners to be able to provide their services to the community, and making sure that it's an accurate reflection of true community need as well as we're navigating what this looks like. So it's really that better together spirit. How can we support families better, and really provide that welcoming and dignified experience, which is at the heart of our mission and everything that
Yeah.
we do.
Well, and I do think one of the unique pieces about what you're talking about is bringing in partners who do that work well. You said yourself, you do food and you do food well, but bringing in WIC, or Women, Infant, and Children programming in, so that there's the expert in that particular resource on site, and you can quickly connect folks, is in and of itself reducing barriers, right? There's barriers to access to information, to, I mean, all sorts of things that might happen, but identifying those partners and having them in the same space may seem like a minor shift, or for some people on the call, they might be thinking, well, of course. But it is a different way to approach sort of the role of a food pantry and the potential that it presents to communities. And I appreciate sort of the way in which that was an embedded part of your expansion. The other thing before we invite the rest of our guests back on, I just want to ask you to describe something, the definition of a border-free pantry. And so I think this might be of interest to the groups, because Urbandale Food Pantry is not just about the Urbandale boundaries. So how does that impact the way that you're serving community in that you are a border-free pantry?
Yes. It's probably one of the first things I have to remind anybody when I'm doing presentation is yes, we're the Urbandale Food Pantry, but we are a border-free food pantry serving anyone who needs access to food. And that started in the pantry was established in 2008. And then in 2016, the Urbandale Food Pantry was approached by Hunger Free Polk County to become a border-free food pantry, opened 40 hours a week. And so the pantry saw a natural progression of the number of families that we were serving. But I really think that being a border-free food pantry and a choice model food pantry, it really just aligns with that mission of giving food with dignity and compassion, that no matter where you live, you can come to the Urbandale Food Pantry. It kind of takes away that other barrier, so we don't limit access based on zip code or city limits or school district. If somebody comes to us and needs food, we serve them, right? So if you live in another city, I mean, we have families that come from Newton, Indianola, Adair, anywhere, hunger doesn't necessarily, stop it. It's cross borders. And so it gives us that opportunity to just remove one more barrier. We don't have to say, do you qualify? It's how can we help you? And so that service perspective really aligns with our mission, again, of just giving food with dignity and compassion.
Well, you never know where those individuals are working. I mean, many are coming on their way to and from work for those other communities. And so just really appreciate your organization's interest in just bringing innovation, whether some people think it's a massive innovation or a quarter turn, it's really changing the lives for people. I mean, it truly is. And so appreciate all those partnerships that you continue to elevate.
We served about 59,000 individuals last year and almost 2 million pounds of food distributed. So
yeah, it's a lot of people getting a lot of support, and really, boy, I'm going to invite all of our panelists to come, or all of our guests to come back on. And you've had the opportunity to hear from 4 unique organizations, but I hope that through this very brief conversation, you've also heard a common thread. That to address deep systemic level things in our community, we have to catalyze bold ideas that challenge thinking, and we need to learn along the way. And we, being willing to learn, being willing to work together, being willing to step out and lean in differently, I think is really a powerful thing about Greater Des Moines. So as we wrap up our conversation today in our remaining minutes, I want to just invite all of our guests today to just share what they think is the biggest challenge or a big challenge in terms of a barrier to do the innovative work that you want to do. And what is important for a donor audience to understand or to know. And I know these folks on this screen, this is going to be hard, but what is a big challenge or barrier to do the work that you're doing? And what do you want the donor audience to know?
I'll go first.
Go for it, Emily. I love it.
Okay, I'm going to answer the second part first, though, and that I hope that that donors hear the message that whether similar to the food pantry and the border-free concept, if you live in Waukee or Dallas County, don't have kids, send your kids to private school. Investing in strong public education, particularly in Des Moines, is vital to the health of Central Iowa. And so I would say along those lines, then, the biggest barrier that we have is that we need more companies that are willing to create substantive and meaningful volunteer and career shadowing opportunities. We need to make sure that our students in every zip code have access to learn about all of these different pathways that are possible to them, even if they're not in Des Moines proper. So I would ask everyone on the call, if your business is interested in creating more substantive mentoring programs or shadowing opportunities, if you or your business wants to invest, consider investing in stronger public schools, because that helps everyone here.
Well, and your comment, Emily, ties back to one of the talking points that you said, which is talent is evenly distributed, but opportunity is not. So thank you for those key takeaways. Boy, I'm thinking some of that, Julian, it makes me think of the work that you're doing with like making sure the apprenticeship programs work. So I don't mean to call you out, but I'm going to call you in and see if you can address those two questions and what you'd want the guests to leave with today.
Yeah, kind of just piggybacking off of what Emily had shared, and referring to the community foundation's like slogan, like we're better together. We need more and more people to step up and be a part of these solutions that we are offering in any type of capacity. It could be from a monetary gift standpoint, it could be volunteering your expertise and your wisdom, even from like a work readiness, like a prep type mindset, from a financial literacy type mindset, or even just notifying others about resources that are available or even employment opportunities that are available. And so the coalition that we have is like 13 individuals that are experts in their specific arena tied to the trades industry. It is either they're doing home repairs themselves, they are a part of a union, or they are contractors themselves running their own contracting business, or they offer some type of workforce development and helping us be able to facilitate some of these things. And so, and I also recognize like my expertise, and I understand that the blind spots I have. And so, having that type of mindset, it's pivotal that we are seeking out each other's involvement and wisdom to help us fill those gaps. And so, how do we supplement things that are already going? And provide solutions to things that are in the middle. And I'll say the biggest challenge I think that we're going to be experiencing as time expands is inflation is a real thing, which then also trickles down to the services that we're providing and the programs that we're providing. Things are more expensive. And the folks that we want to help in our program, we're trying to get them to that next, you could say, tax bracket, or get to a livable status where they're thriving. They're not just surviving and, paying, going bill to bill. They are paycheck to paycheck. They are having leftover funds to be able to, invest in their retirement, to send their child to an academy, to allow their child the opportunity to capitalize on the things that they've learned in pre-K or learned in elementary or some of the after school programs. And so that I would say that would be the biggest thing, is that dollars are extremely important, but also just your presence and your interest in learning more about what we are doing. I would say all three of those things: monetary support, volunteering, and just being intrigued about what we're doing and learning more. I'm a person, I love coffee. I'm more than happy to grab coffee.
Yes,
And
you are. I know you will do that. So
and if you want to grab coffee, we're going to a local business that is
that's
here, that's
right.
investing dollars, is opening their space to people. And so I think
For sure.
having that type of ecosystem where we care for one another, it may not be directly towards like a specific service or a budget item, but just knowing that we're contributing and creating this ecosystem where dollars is staying in our community and helping one another. Like our dollars, we about $10,000 supports one pre-apprentice through our entire program. And that could be transformative, not only for themselves, but for their own families and the generations to come. And so
Right.
that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to help people not only get to housing stability, but help them meet them where they're at and navigate them to where they're trying to achieve.
Well, it's wrapping it all up in that slogan. I mean, and it's true, that better together spirit, absolutely. And appreciate that reflection. It's gets down to the basics sometimes. Patty, I feel like better together is also your community hub vision. If I may add that.
Absolutely. I think the two things that I just want to mention is one, it takes a collective effort, the cross connection between government and city and philanthropic and corporate and individuals coming together. You can really see
Yeah.
change happen. And so it definitely takes that effort and advocacy and having conversations, and sometimes hard conversations. Food insecurity and the work that all of us are doing are in every community. And so keeping that in mind. And I would say one of the other biggest challenges is sometimes the need is growing faster than systems are meant to support or to keep up with
Yeah.
that. And so innovation really requires flexible, sustained funding and
Mhm.
investing in capacity and systems and staffing and partnerships really allow us to respond during crises or meeting the moments. And flexible funding is what turns good programs into lasting systems.
Yeah, I love that. It makes me think about, in many ways, businesses, for-profit institutions, R&D, research and design is a real thing, and creating space within the nonprofit sector for those kinds of opportunities is also important. And boy, Dr. Johnson, there's a lot of research and design that you like to lead in our community, so I will leave you with the last question.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd echo everyone's comments around needing that cross-sector collaboration in order to make all of this happen, whether that's on a services side or whether it's on a systems or policy focus. And I think from our perspective, we talk about this work as community-wide collaborative learning opportunities so that we can inform the systems to optimally operate. So I would just stress that investing in data-driven solutions is very critical, especially as the dollars become less and less, that we need to have those data-driven solutions to ensure that our funds are utilized in the most optimal way to impact community in the ways that they're intended. And so research is not for research's sake, but research to truly inform in a data-driven way how we're running our programs and services.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's really important. And I loved how you answered the question at the beginning about, so what might we do with that? What could we see happen for whatever we learn applying to the systems? And boy, I am grateful that all of you shared about these projects. There's so much work that's happening on the ground, but the connectivity to what our community sees as the future of Greater Des Moines is really important and is not something to be missed. So grateful for all of that and the potential that you're helping lead for our region. So to everybody who joined us, I really hope that through the conversation today, you've heard how significant these efforts are going to be and are in the lives of our neighbors and in the trajectory of our community. If you are inspired to join in support of any of these projects or connect with other causes that you might care about, please reach out to the Community Foundation. We are here to help you, to support you, to make connections, whatever you may need to continue your investment in Greater Des Moines. Give DSM. Many of you are familiar with that tool, but would just remind you it's a great place to explore on your own. And of course, we're happy to have a conversation with you as well. If something that you see there piques your interest, let us know how we could come alongside you in your giving. So be watching for a summary email from today's session with easy ways to connect with the causes you care about. To echo Julian, I am sure a conversation over a local cup of coffee would be welcomed by any of the folks on this screen. And if we can be helpful in making those connections, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks to our panelists. Thanks for joining. It's not a Community Foundation webinar without saying we are simply better together. Thanks for being here and have a wonderful rest of your day.